Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video I am going to be filming a highly requested video. A lot of you guys have been asking me to do like an updated Colourpop palette video, and I thought for today's video I would just mainly focus on the 9-pan palettes because they have been releasing a ton of them recently. Today is Tuesday, 17th of September. As of right now, I own all of them. Hopefully by the time I upload this video, Colourpop will not release another 9-pan. I just want to like run through every single palette that they have on their site right now. So I do have all 13 9-pan palettes, and I'm pretty much just going to talk about each individual palette, what I like about them or what I don't like about them, and how often I use it. And then towards the end of the video, I will share my recommendations, my top favorites, and which palette I would recommend to you guys, because that is a question I do get asked about a lot, is which palette is my favorite 9-pan. So we have a lot to cover. We have 13 palettes to talk about, so I already know today's video is going to be a long one. I do want to mention that every single palette that I'm going to talk about today, I do have a dedicated review on, 3 looks on, so if you want to see inspiration on one of these palettes, then I will leave all links related down below. You guys can click on that to see a thorough review, to see more looks. The only palette that I have not done a review on is the Baby Got Peach. However, I will be doing my review and 3 looks on this soon. It will probably be coming out in the coming weeks. I'm just waiting for the brown liner and a couple of cheek products that came with this collection, and then I'm gonna film my review. Like, other than that, everything else I've already made a video on. So yeah, with that being said, let's just jump straight into today's video. I'm just going to start from like the rainbow. So starting off with yellow first, which is the Honey palette. This is more of like a newer launch. To be completely honest with you guys, I have not touched this palette ever since I wrapped up my video on it. So that just kind of shows you like I don't really gravitate towards this palette. It's not like a palette that I would pick up on the daily. I mean, some people would. You definitely could use this palette as an everyday palette, but I think for me it's because I have a very strong golden yellow undertone. I feel like yellow shadows on me doesn't look as great, especially if I don't have a darker color to deepen up the look, and this palette does not give you that. This palette does not give me a wide range of mattes. I only get light and medium tones in here, and they're just very light. You can't create a smoky eye, a cut crease with this because there's nothing dark enough to give you that depth. And so for that reason, it's not a palette that I would go for very often. It's not my favorite. And the next palette is Baby Got Peach. Like I said, I have not even played with this palette yet. I have not swatched it, but again, just looking at it, I feel like I'm gonna have the same feelings as I did with the yellow palette and with a couple of other palettes that I will talk about soon. You can just see everything in here is very light. There's no dark shadows to really deepen up a look and help you create more dramatic looks. Everything is just like to a light to medium tone. Although I feel like these tones are more up my alley. I love muted peachy mauve tones, so I think I will get a good wear out of this, but I do not want to form a solid opinion on something that I have not used. So just keep an eye out, stay subscribed, and I will be uploading my review on this very shortly. Next we have the orange palette, Orange You Glad. I do like this palette, but again, I have not picked it up ever since I wrapped up my video a couple months ago at this point. But being said, this is more like a recent palette. I typically don't go back to palettes very often because I'm always trying new palettes, and there's only 7 days in a week and I don't wear makeup every single day. But this is a palette that I would go back to because you do get your light transition shadows, your medium tones, and you get one slightly dark, like it's borderline dark. I would like it to be a little bit darker, but nonetheless, I think the shades in here are very pretty. If you like warm tones, you would definitely really like this orange palette. I feel like oranges are not something like that's missing in the makeup world. I feel like there's a lot of oranges in palettes. I would say it's a good palette, but still not my favorite 9-pan. Next, we have Strawberry Shake. As silly as this sounds, I just have bad memories tied in with this strawberry palette. When I was filming my review for this palette and filming the 3 looks, that was like the transition where my cat passed away, and the last photo I took with my cat, I was wearing this palette, and it's just kind of bad memories. But taking those memories away from the palette, I do think this is a good palette. With the 9-pans, I feel like I have like the top category where I love, it just hits everything that I want in a palette. palette. Then we have the medium category where it is a good palette, but it's not a palette that I pick up very often. And I feel like this falls in that medium category. The yellow palette falls into the bottom category where it just doesn't hit what I want in a palette. Like it doesn't have any dark shadows in it, and it's a palette that I wouldn't pick up very often. I think the yellow palette goes at the bottom. This would go in the middle, and then I have my top palettes, which we are coming up to soon. I think you get a lot of medium tones in here. I wish there was a little bit of darker tones, but it is still a very workable palette, and I do enjoy it. I think the shades in here are very unique, very pretty pink shadows. Now we are coming to Ooh La La. This is the pink palette, and pink is my favorite color, so I don't know if I'm just like a little bit biased, but out of all of my 9-pan palettes, this palette and the It's My Pleasure, which is coming up, are probably my top 2 most used 9-pan palettes. I just feel like although this looks so vibrant and in your face, when you want to create a pink, like smoky eye, pink mauvey purple smoky eye, I always gravitate towards this palette. I'm always thinking of this palette when I want to create like a pink galaxy look. Although this palette doesn't have like a very dark pink purple, that's why I always go into the It's My Pleasure palette, which is like kind of cheating, but I just love the tones in here a lot. So for that reason, like it is in like my top category, and it's a palette that I would recommend to you guys. Next up is the red palette, which is called Main Squeeze, kind of like the watermelon palette. I also am a very big fan of this. When I played with this palette, I was so in love that it was like battling Ooh La La and Main Squeeze. I feel like this palette I definitely can wear more for every day. I feel like the colors are a little bit more like muted rather than the Ooh La La. The Ooh La La is like when I want to create a statement. This palette as well, you obviously can create a statement with, but because I feel like it's more muted, you can create more everyday appropriate looks, and it just hits everything for me. You get transitions, dark shades, medium shades, and then 3 beautiful metallics in the middle. So this is like in my top category as well. Like I love this palette so much. Next up we have the It's My Pleasure, the purple palette. Again, this is just another palette that I love dearly and I use so often. Although you don't get that many mattes in here, I feel like this with the Ooh La La palette just works miracles together. So in this palette you only get 4 mattes, but you get a bunch of beautiful purples that are so unique. The shade that I use mostly in this palette is called Sleeper at the bottom, the darkest purple. You can buy it as like an individual single shadow. I just love this palette and these shades in here. I kind of wish I used this palette today and created like a purple eye, but because I feel like I've been creating so many pink and purple eye looks, I just did blue, because when do I ever wear blue eyeshadow? Next up is the green palette, Just My Luck. When this came out, I was super excited for it because I remember just wanting like a green palette, because I feel like we didn't really see a lot of green eyeshadows, and Colourpop just answered it. I love this palette a lot as well. The range of mattes in here, you get a lot of dark shadows, one like transition, and then a couple of medium tones, and it just hits what I want. I feel like you guys can tell what I look for in a palette. I look for more mattes than shimmers, and then I look for a variety of the mattes. So I want my transitions, my medium, and then my darks, and this palette has it all. I think the metallics in here are very unique, and green shadows just make brown eyes pop so well. I feel like green and purple complements brown eyes so beautifully. So I love this palette. I don't use it enough. I have touched it since I've done my review. So yeah, it's a palette I definitely would recommend if you're just looking for some green eyeshadows. This is a really good one. Next up I have Blue Moon, and this is the palette that I am wearing on my eyes today. The way I feel about this palette is definitely the way I feel about the green palette as well, where it has your transitions, your medium tones, and your dark tones, and a beautiful range of metallics. I have used it multiple times ever since I finished my review, and if I have picked up a palette after the fact that I've done my review, then you know it's a good palette. We are working our way through this video. We are now down to the last 4, and these last 4 are definitely a lot more neutral. So if you are not into all of these bright colors, let's go into Brown Sugar, which is another favorite of mine. I actually really enjoy this palette. This was a collab with Karuchi. It just comes with a good solid amount of your neutral shades, and I really like this. I feel like it's a very smoky neutral palette, and it's great for travel. I feel like this is a palette I definitely would travel with, because you do get the mirror, it's very compact, and it just has the shadows that you need. So 6 mattes, 3 metallics, beautiful combination. And yeah, what else more can I say about a neutral palette. I really like it. I don't use it as much, but I have used it multiple times ever since my review. Another 9-pan collab. This one is with Makeup Shayla, Proceed with Caution. I really enjoyed this palette as well. I used it a couple times after my video. If I had to choose between Brown Sugar and Proceed with Caution, I personally would go with Brown Sugar, just because there's more mattes, and it's just mattes up my alley. This one has a little bit more pops of colors. You can see the metallics are a little bit brighter. So just for everyday wear, personally, I prefer Brown Sugar. But nonetheless, Shayla did an amazing job with Proceed with Caution. It's like a neutral palette with pops of colors, pops of yellow, and I feel like it's very on theme with the whole construction work. So yeah, it is a very pretty palette. I feel like if you like her Perception palette, you definitely will like Proceed with Caution. And for my last two palettes, let's take it back to where it all started. Sol and Ma were the first 9-pan palettes, and it just kind of blew up into this thing, and I just adored the 9 palettes ever since then. So let's start off with Sol. My Sol is a little bit dirty because one shade did shatter. Sol is not a palette that I do go back into very often. I just think it's a little bit too bright for me to wear every day, but I do think some of the shadows in here are very, very unique for certain looks. You know, there's like a time and place for this palette. It is a really good palette, but it's not a palette that I would pick up very often. This is very comparable, I would say, to the Yes Please. I personally will go to the Yes Please more than I would go to this. We then have the Ma palette. I don't know why, but when I first got this palette, I always thought this would be the blue palette. But after seeing the Blue Moon, this is definitely the blue palette. This is kind of like Proceed with Caution, but like the blue version. You get your neutral tones, but then you get like a pop of blue right down the middle. I am obsessed with the metallic teals in here. They're just so pretty and very unique, and I think like spending $12 US for these two shades alone is definitely worth it. I remember saying that in my review, and I still stand by that because they are very unique shades. Although I haven't used this palette like very often, I still think it is a really great solid palette at the end of the day. You only get like 3 mattes in here, but I think using it with the Sol palette, it does work well. Obviously, all of these palettes, you can use it with other palettes you have in your collection. I am just strictly speaking on the palette itself. I really do like all of the 9-pan palettes, and I think everybody looks for different things in the palette. So my top favorite palettes is definitely not going to be your top favorite palettes. You might not even like my top favorites. We could be definitely the complete opposite, because I know not everybody does want like a dark shadow in a palette. They rather get like more transition shadows because you want to create more natural and soft looks, and that's completely fine. But for me, I do want a range where I can create soft looks, just everyday looks, and then more dramatic and glam looks. So I just kind of want like an all-around palette when I look at these, and obviously we all prefer different colors. Yeah, so just a disclaimer, you know, just take everything with a grain of salt as always. This is just what I personally like and what I feel like you guys would like. So with that being said, let's start off with my number 1 spot. So I feel like my number 1 spot is hard to choose between these 3 palettes. If we're speaking about the palette that I have used the most, it would definitely be the Ooh La La, and then It's My Pleasure at a close second, and then Main Squeeze after that. Which palette is better for every day out of the 3? I would say Main Squeeze. So I'm just gonna say my top 3 is the red, purple, and pink. No certain order, I just like all 3. And then my 4th and 5th place would have to be between the green and the blue palette. And it's in the 4th and 5th place because I feel like for green and blue, it's not a color that I would wear like every day. It's not a color that I'm like willing to wear going out. Like today I'm wearing blue, I'm not going anywhere. So it's like I can wear it to film for creative purposes, but it's a little bit hard to incorporate for an everyday look personally. I feel like green is probably more wearable. And then for a neutral palette, it would have to be the Brown Sugar. I feel like I'm gonna really like the peach palette just because it's up my alley. Like I love those kind of tones. So I have a feeling the peach palette, but I can't say anything because I have not used it. But yeah, that would have to be my top recommendations and my top favorite palettes out of the 9 pans. So this, guys, is going to complete my video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. It just lets me know I am doing a good job over on my end and you guys are enjoying it. And be sure to leave your thoughts down below. I want to know your favorite 9 pan palette. Do we have a similar top 6 or are we completely the opposite? I will love to hear your thoughts on the 9 pans. I think it is a really great idea from Colourpop, and it's a great price, great formula. All around, I love all of the palettes, but I do have my certain favorites that I go back to very often. So yeah, I would love to know yours. Leave them down below. But with that being said, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!